Okay, so mostly inspired by Tables, a man with a much greater accent than mine. I'm going to try to go through some of these cards. It's also going to be a lot easier than trying to type everything up because I talk a lot faster than I type, even though I think I type reasonably fast. Anyway, enough with that stuff. First of all, some general comments. Big thing is that there is this common thing with designing cards that you try to make it balanced. Okay, making it balanced is good, but there is a common problem with a lot of the cards that they are bad a lot of the time, and then when they're good, they're like broken good. This is actually really unbalanced. Um, it that may be on average reasonable power, but because it's imbalanced in every game, it's very unbalanced. In fact, for Dominion, where there's 10 Kingdom cards, it's much better to be bad most of the time and reasonably good occasionally. Even though that's a very weak card overall, it can still be quite interesting. I like to call these cards. Uh, I had a great term for it. What was it? Terra Broken. Yeah, that's it. By the way, please let me know how the video and sound quality comes out on this. I think I am able now to up the video quality to, yeah, this should be just good video quality now, as good as you like. Um, but the sound quality is still giving me a little bit of issues, but let me know. Um, all right, a couple other comments. I don't like some of the things you're trying to do with in general, and it's not necessarily anything against you. I just don't like trying to use tokens for other weird uses other than just what they are, like returning VP tokens. I don't like it. Yes, it's a resource you can use, but that just sort of defeats the point of them being VP tokens. Using trade route tokens in a different way, I don't know. I just don't really like it. Final disclaimer: one of these cards is mine. I'm gonna try to not give it away. Anyway, here we go. Oh, I guess final disclaimer. I may bash your card, I may praise your card. No reflection on you. I've designed terrible cards in the past, so. Anyway, here we go. First of all, Relic costs 6. Well, you can read this, right? Trashing up to 2 cards from hand and play seems really powerful to me. It does cost 6, but I don't think that's that prohibitive. Even if you get rid of this last sentence that gives you some incentive for trashing action cards. It's a treasure card that trashes, and you can play coppers and then trash them. I already think that's a little bit above the curve, although that might not be terribly broken, but I don't know. I think it's a very interesting idea, but a little bit too good, I think. Okay, second card, Artist. You may trash this. Oh, by the way, I've also read all these cards and a lot of comments on them already. Okay, Artist. Which one is this? This is the yes. It's 3. And when you buy a victory card, you get another VP. Um, yeah, seems really weak actually for the normal effect. So then there's the trash effect. Well, I mean, you could get 3 extra VP out of this that way, but I honestly feel like this card could cost 5, and this phrase would be is a bit clunky, but it could, or this whole thing. If it cost 5 and just had the extra VP whenever you buy a victory card, I actually think that'd be quite a reasonable 5 cost. At 6, this just seems too weak to me. Okay. And not that exciting anyway. I'm buying a victory card and it's just worth a little more. Nah. All right. Usurer. This is the one that is the cantrip mine top deck thing. Um, yeah, this is really hard for me to evaluate. This one is interesting, and I want to say because it costs 6, probably bad. But if the game is going to last long enough, it could be really good. Um, thing to note is that it also actually sets up your next hand a little bit, but with a treasure card, which has its pros and cons. Um, it's going to be a decent treasure card anyway. I think this is a little bit weak, probably. And you can't do much to make it better because it's going to step on mine's toes, unfortunately. This card is interesting. I like the idea a lot. It should cost 2. Compare with Ironworksing a Squire or Ironworksing a Silver or Squiring a Silver. It's the same, except it's conditional to gain the silver. And being a treasure over an action is not over a terminal action. Admittedly, I don't think is worth it. I think it costs 2 and would still be fine, and I would like it then. Yeah, Strong Room has this weird VP token thing, and this weird everybody gets VP tokens just to power this card. I don't like that at all. Yeah, I really don't like this strange seeming phrasing of it. And, um, well, I don't think you should return that many tokens that often, but 1 or 2 maybe per play, and it's just like a better warehouse which can turn into lab. Like, just a big warehouse is not that bad to start with, and then because you can opportunistically make it better, I think this card is just very strong, apart from being clunky, and I don't like it that much. Okay, Metropolis. Here is a Terra Broken card. A lot of the times, because it's a $7 village, yeah, it's not that good. And you just never buy it, and it's terrible. And then a lot of times it's like Grand Market, but it costs 7, but you can pay coppers on it. And it's a village, so it helps you draw your deck. And then like 2 to 3 silvers or golds, and you're making 3 money on a cantrip with it. And if you're already drawing your deck, this is a huge amount of cantrip money. You need some kind of buy, and you need some kind of draw, but most games are engine games already. Very powerful when it is. When it is good, and of course, not good when it's not. And I don't think it's ever going to be in that sort of middle-ish, interesting card range, and that's a problem. Okay, Stock Exchange. It costs 7 worth this one. I don't like this card because it's just a guilds card. It's overpay exactly, right? Um, well, when you buy a victory card, you may overpay for it. Basically, it's exactly what it is. And I also don't like how Estate is at least as good as any other victory card and better than Duchy or Province. Um, I take that back, I guess, right? There's some of the alt VP would still be better, but yeah, that's just too strange. Chalice is too much like Quarry. Um, you're mostly using it for actions, and okay, you can use it for slogs and buying treasures. Gaining the curse, you're not going to do that often, but you can. So, hey. And compared to Quarry, how often do you need the 1 money from Quarry and not buy you need that 1 money from Quarry to buy something other than an action? I don't think very often. On the other hand, it's less good with multiple buys, but I don't know, it's just mostly too similar to me, more than any power level concern. Um, Hold on a second here. All right. Okay. So now what are we on? We're on Surveyor. Yeah, you have to discard this. Before that was the case, before that had been corrected, um, I think this card was just amazingly too good because you just get a fairly thin deck with these in a province and just pile up oodles of VP cantrip-wise. So I thought, oh, you should have to discard it instead. The problem is you still do that. Um, Now, on the other hand, it does have a way where you end the game because you eventually turn them in for provinces, but you don't do that until sort of the last moment. Still seems really good. Um, but maybe Highway is really good in some cases too. So I don't know. It's mostly a peddler variant with a nice bonus. I think this bonus is a little bit too nice, but maybe. What is this one? Discard treasure. Yeah, so this is a interesting treasure gold gainer, but it's only like a copper when you do that. Um, which seems like it should probably cost 6. Um, can compare Soothsayer. Um, but okay, bump it down to 6, and that seems interesting. And you get an action card costing up to 4, which is occasionally very bad randomly. Um, Most of the time, reasonably good, but not great. Um, yeah, I'd probably just scrap this bit, make it cost 6, and I like it. I don't know. Railway Town, absolutely broken. You just have to get as many as you can because if you let your opponent get at these uncontested, they're just going to gain all kinds of VPs all day long and never have any incentive to end the game, really. Um, Not to mention it just turns into like an absolute beast later on. The extra card's actually not even that great, although it's not bad, but it does way too much. This could cost 10, and maybe it'd be okay, but it would probably be Terra broken then. Um, okay, this one definitely needs to be conditional on the below the line, and if you do that, it's at least potentially interesting. Um, is it actually interesting? Um, Everybody gets one that's two cheaper. Can get one that's two cheaper. Um, yeah, so it's like a haggler that lets them gain a gold instead of you. That's pretty bad. Um, but it's worth a bit more and gives you an extra buy. Um, I still think that's pretty bad for 7. I think it could cost 6. That's a pretty big drawback. I really like the idea though. I love the idea of the drawback, but its particular implementation I think is a bit weak. I'm not sure though. What is this? This is this one of these interesting weird sets cards. Um, and someone else pointed out that it has confusing interactions with hybrids, but let's forget that for a second, because I assume that those can get worked out. A card of each. So, okay, this can be like a governor, but governor for draw with no drawback for 7, which that's fine. The weird thing is, okay, one of them's a victory, so it's more like a lab for 7, which is weak, except you probably don't have that many victory cards, so you probably get a lot of filtering, which gets to be pretty strong again. So 7 is fine. But it does actually nothing for you if you don't have a victory card or if you happen to have this in hand, which makes it just really swingy for my tastes. Although I like doing some kind of uh, governor lab effect, I think this one's a little bit too swingy for me, but definitely at least an interesting idea. Palace. I don't like that you have to have Colony and Platinum. Um, um, da, 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 dum. Yeah, and as for the card itself, um, they cost 2, colonies cost 2 less, and makes colonies and platinum better, which seems really strange and weird. Um, like it's so weak to start with a terminal copper with a buy. and then it only helps you when you can buy those things. So you want to get it towards the lake. It's so narrow, and then probably when it's good, it's really, really good. And I also don't like that you always have Colony and Platinum. Crown seems very good, probably. Like, you just get the first one of these for going province. And then you just gain all the rest of them off your first one. Maybe you buy, like, the last one or something. And that is, well, you have 2 chips. Uh, you have 2 chips per, so you get 10 of them. That's 20 points. It's like more than a 3 province deficit. It's a pretty big alternate VP card, and then you can just gain lots of golds from it. Um, Maybe that's actually not good because it costs 8. Um, okay, first of all, I guess it's probably very, very good if you have some other VP chip generating cards, Bishop or Monument principally. It's not going to outclass Goons. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a little bit too complicated for throwing. It seems like there's a lot of stuff thrown on to try to balance it, and that it can gain itself. I don't like actually. Maybe if it couldn't gain itself, it'd be interesting, but because it actually gives you that option at least, maybe you just use it to get golds or platinum all the time, and that's reasonable, although it's probably a little expensive for that. Um, Although early on anyway. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you just use it to gain golds early, and then you get the other ones with these things late. I guess that makes more sense if you're. So one of the things you have to think about when balancing a card is, what if someone just goes for all of these? Does the opponent have to contest? If the opponent absolutely has to contest, the card's probably just too strong. Now, there are some printed cards like that, so maybe, yeah, I don't know. Okay, Cathedral. Wow, too powerful. Yeah, it costs 7, but wow. King's Greed, same thing. Like, Terra Broken. If there aren't colonies, like playing 3, yeah, I don't know. It's just such a powerful effect, and then it costs so much. It's either going to be broken or bad, I think. Not a lot to say. Mediator. People keep saying this card is powerful. I think this card is weak. So you reveal 3 from your hand, and then you have to discard or top deck 1. So like early in the game, that's probably going to be estate copper or estate copper copper. You're going to have to reveal a copper almost always, so it's going to be a terminal silver, which is nothing. Like you wouldn't buy a terminal silver. So that's not very good. I guess if you already have enough money that you want to seed your deck with a good card, that it can be really strong then. But if you've built up enough of an engine or a huge enough amount of money for that already, I don't mind you being able to get this for 3. Um, and I think, yeah, just normally it's going to be terminal silver, or even worse if you have to reveal like a silver, which you can top deck. It's like a terminal copper then. Yeah, I don't know. But then the reaction part is super strong. So, yeah, top part too bad, bottom part too good. Um, when there are attacks being played, obviously. Okay. Prospector. Um, Sorry about this. I am having conversations unexpectedly while doing this. My apologies. Okay, so Prospector. Put the reveal yeah, so this is the discard the rest is sort of weird. Um, you only get to draw treasure. Well, I guess that makes more somewhat sense. Um, yeah, you can only use this for big money, or I guess with cellar or warehouse effects in an engine. Um, how good is it for big money, I guess. The problem I sort of see is the drawback seems a little tacked on, although maybe it's just fine. And I guess a lot of drawbacks do seem tacked on, so that's fine. I don't know. I actually think I quite like this card. I don't think draw four for well, I don't know. Draw four for four and with a buy is really good for big money. That's like Wharf but cheaper. Yeah, that's too good. Um, maybe if it cost five. I don't think filtering a treasure is that much enough of a drawback. I think if this cost five, it'd be real interesting. Um, yeah, maybe you can even take the drawback off if you do that. All right, 2 VP gain a gold. That's fine. Okay. Trash any number of cards from your hand. For each card you trash. Yeah, it's sort of like Forge in a way, but costs 6. You just unconditionally trash them, which can be better than Forge in some ways. And the benefit is potentially better than Forge also. I mean, I think it's going to be a better card than Forge, and probably pretty good. Pretty good. Forum. Yeah, this is just, it costs 5, and you're just not going to be trashing silver for VP that often. I don't like this card at all. Because in the deck where you have a lot of silver, um, you probably want to keep them, like until the end of the game at least. Um, so this is basically like a watchtower without the reaction that costs more and can slingshot you 2 or 3 VP. Um, I don't think that that's worth it, and might not even slingshot you that many. I don't know. Certainly you're not going to get a lot of them, but more I think about it, maybe that's okay, because you're going to probably be able to get 2 or 3 VP a lot of the time and compare Duchy. So, I don't know. You don't. By the time you're wanting to buy Duchies, you're probably not going to have much chance to play this, though. I still think it seems sort of weak and narrow. Statue is Terra broken. Most of the time, that effect is it's too expensive for that effect, I think. But when you can use it to good effect, you just win. Or it gets into this degenerate, you're just playing that all the time and have no incentive to end the game. Which is the big problem with VP tokens. If you can get into that situation, the game just goes forever. Aqueduct, yeah, it's similar to that previous card. Aqueduct A, I should say. And, 2 buys seems alright, I don't know. It's a big card that promotes big money. Um, I actually think you should. I'd sort of like it if it were a treasure and then you didn't have to discard anything. I think that's how I'd like it better. But it's like the other one. I think it's an interesting idea. Um, this one, Deed. Um, yeah, I so feel like I've seen this before, and I think it's sort of weak, and I also don't like it. Philanthropist. Now, lots of people are saying good things about this card. I think the card's terrible. Um, just because gaining a card costing up to 5 is really, really, really good. Early on, you take those actions, it's a lot better than having 3 VP chips. You get a hunting party, or a wharf, or a mountebank, or something like that. And it's just better than having 3 VP chips, arguably. Certainly with the opportunity cost that this thing has provided you with. So there's that. And then, second of all, later on, they just gain a duchy, and you haven't gotten ahead either. You basically made them take a confusion and nothing else for 4, which is quite a bit worse than Sea Hag. In fact, the card is basically always worse than Sea Hag. Um, the other thing is playing it a million times usually doesn't also do it. Also doesn't do it for you. Okay, worse than Sea Hag isn't the worst thing ever, but I think it's usually substantially worse than Sea Hag, and Sea Hag isn't brokenly good. Um, and almost always, basically always worse than Sea Hag. Anyway, playing it a million times, like obviously you're not going to actually be able to play it a million times. Playing it like 15 times, they're just going to end the game because they're going to be able to pile out before you can get your I'm playing VP chips. And that's I'm sure that's the design is it promotes the game ending, but the card is just probably the weakest card submitted, I think, um, or very close to it. Clearinghouse. Um, it's a lab that lets you trash cards to draw. Um, yeah, I like it. Trash treasures to draw, I should say. Um, like it's very, very efficient at trashing coppers, which probably makes it pretty good. But then it turns into like just a lab, so that's fine. For 6, obviously not for 5, but for 6, I think that's fine. Workhouse. It's got to be too weak, right? Harvest often gives you this much, and it's a very bad 5. Now, obviously, I think if it always gave you 4, it would be a pretty good 5, but I don't even think it would be towards the best of the 5s. Actually, I don't even think it would be a pretty good 5. It would be like an average, mediocre 5. Um, obviously, you can't print this at 5 because Harvest exists, but it's just very weak, I think. Gemstone. The rarity thing. I'm not a big fan of these kinds of effects. Um, this one's sort of interesting, but yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't really like these. Ascetic. Um, you one-shot this. It's sort of like a chapel that gives you VP, but can't touch victory cards. Um, and gets rid of itself. Um, which makes me think it's probably pretty good to get one of these and then get another one later towards the end, because that's going to be like a province's worth of stuff. You get one early, and then once you're building your engine, you pick up another one at some point to finish it off. Um, you end up with 7 points out of that. I think that's quite strong. Um, maybe not broken, but I think a little bit too strong. Um, dividends. Dividends is like a gold. The problem I have with it is it's almost strictly better than gold because you just gain silver. And okay, sometimes you don't want a lot of treasure cards, but in that case you usually don't want gold either. I guess it's not really strictly better, but it's most of the time you want gold, you'd prefer this. Um, which is not the biggest crime ever, but I think it's stepping on gold's toes a little bit too much. Um, because, yeah, I mean, certainly it's not probably not that good in a colony game, but you're probably not getting gold anyway in the games where you don't want this, because you're just getting those $5 actions. Maybe eventually, but yeah, I don't know. Villa. Um, Villa's sort of weird. Um, you play up to 2 treasures, so that doesn't actually do anything for you because you're going to be able to play them anyway. And then you draw until you have 4 in hand. So, like, starting the turn with this, you play 2 treasures, and then you lab yourself, um, which basically just makes this a lab. Um, and then if you do it again, it's better, but you probably won't have that many treasures, so I don't know. I sort of feel like this is pretty weak in comparison to lab. Probably can be abused, although not too much in the right deck, like a reasonably well good card, but I want to see it do something a little better. I don't know if that's draw to 5 or give you money or give you a buy even. or just cost 4. I think maybe with a buy I would like it. Yeah. Golden Touch. Way too swingy, trashing the top card of your deck. I understand you turn it into a gold, but yeah, trash top card of your deck is too swingy of an effect for me. Aqueduct B. Um, yeah, so this one, it gives you a little bit of filtering for being a silver. But you have to discard, but basically it's just a silver, right? An action silver. With a little bit of filtering, but like the wrong card of filtering. Like, I think if it was draw a card and then discard one, it would obviously be stronger. And stronger isn't always better, which is something I think a lot of people don't get here. But um, yeah, I think this is too weak. It's mostly just a silver. It could cost 4 without the drawback, and maybe it'd be okay. Inheritance. I quite like this card. It does almost nothing for you if you're not buying treasure cards. Multiples of these get sort of weird, I guess, but this is a card that just lets you buy 2 silvers by itself, or probably a gold and a silver, with a little bit of other stuff, which is pretty good, but like obviously not broken very often. Um, so you don't want to get a lot of these, but it can help money strategies out. It's probably fairly weak, but occasionally decent. I think I like this card. Okay, Crown B. Yeah, so 7 for a 4 is just 1 better than gold. And everybody else gets 2 victory points. I, I like, it seems a little bit weird as a kind of balancing thing. Um, so maybe this is fine, or maybe it's way too good, or maybe it's terrible. I'm guessing it's probably not way too good because gold is not that great. Um, I'm guessing it's actually probably just not very good. I don't know. Doesn't do a lot for me, but it's probably reasonable. Standard bearer. Can we say swingy and broken? Um, well, mostly swingy. Griffin is worth 1 per revealed victory card. Yeah, I actually really like that mechanic. I'm not sure that this is the best card ever for it, but I quite like the mechanic. Um, and then it lets you get extra. So I really like the idea of this card. I think it's just too weak as is, but you make it a little bit cheaper or something like that. And I love the idea of the card. Um, I 3 or 4 for the cost, and I think I like it. Okay, charity. I almost designed this card actually. I had 2 submissions that I did not submit, 2 ideas, and this was basically the original version of one of those, but I realized giving the copper is an attack, and so it would have to be an attack. So my final version of the card was just the silver option. It was just you always gained. Basically, it's a gold that floods you with silver like that previous card, and floods them with silver too. Um, which is fine not being an attack. With the copper, it's not. And the choice to be able to choose either one, I think, is a bit strong, although my version was probably a bit weak. Um, but it's a gold that floods both of you with silver. For 5, I think that's perfectly reasonable. As is with the copper, it's too good and should definitely be an attack. Fountain. Fountain seems really good because it's just you get to spam VP all the time. 2 VP per play is probably better than gold. And then the extra thing on it just lets you buy as many as you want with impunity, basically. Yeah, I don't think it encourages you to be creative enough, and I think it's too good, so I don't really like it. Okay, Savant. Each other player draws, then discards, and gets a VP if he discards an action or treasure. So I think you're most often probably going to want to discard a copper, and that's quite good for them. Um, and if you discard an estate, this is basically just worse than governor. This could cost 5, basically. Um, and I still think it would be worse than governor. Yeah, I don't know. Patent. Um, yeah, this card seems not terribly useful. You just buy the other card to start with. If it's a 5. If it's a 6, then it lets you duplicate that. But it's just a silver in the meantime. So I don't think that's all that good because there aren't all that many like power 6s. Um, yeah. So okay, Queen's Palace. Um, what is this one? This one is, yeah, that returning the VP token thing. Again, I don't like that mechanic. This one I also think is, well, it's sort of interesting because if you buy it early, it's just terrible. So your opponent doesn't, and so you get 2 plays out of it, and it's really good for those plays. Although not, I mean, that is really good for those 2 plays. Even giving them the 2 VP point swing. Um, I also don't like the weird setup rule, but anyway, but it's I mean it's more than enough I think for those 2 plays, although maybe not tons more. But then they just sit on them and you have a dead card for a long time. So you need to get this sort of in the mid-late game where you're not going to be able to play it the 3rd time or whatever. And in the cases where it's good, it might be brokenly good because it just gets you your bridge megaturn or whatever. Though those will be pretty rare. So Terra broken, I think. Mafia. Okay. They. Oh, this is the Super Thief. I'm pretty sure that's just really good because a very large percentage of decks rely on treasure. Being able to play this a few times, um, you just lock them out. And it actually can get to this weird game state where if they have, because this is so expensive, they have like 7 provinces, and then you just trash all their treasure. And there aren't enough victory cards left for you to catch up. But they're never going to be able to buy more stuff. So they're because you trash them, and then you do have enough victory cards and or enough victory points to catch up. And yeah, it's just sort of a nightmare. I think it's too good most of the time, and occasionally terrible. Sort of the opposite of Terra Broken, but along the same vein. Okay, Witch's Throne. Or Witch's Trove. Yeah, this is the Curse Interactor one, right? So it's worth 2, and then you get a huge benefit if you have curses. And then you can take curses, although you could also buy them if you had spare buys. I gotta say, this is pretty much gotta be Terra Broken. Usually bad, but maybe if you can make the lot of curses work. Although even so, it's gonna be hard to line these up with curses. Like, curses are just so bad. And okay, lining it up with 1 makes it worth 5. I guess if you can, like, mid-turn it, this can make you just tons of money. But that's not that useful that often, and curses are so bad and make it less likely that these line up right. It's only worth 2 to, yeah, I don't like it. Okay, Palladium. So somebody went deep on the elemental metal names. Like, you could have gone for Chrome. Anyway, what is this? Oh, yeah, this one. So people have pointed out that this one-shots itself, and I assume that that was intentional because otherwise it would just be like way too good. If you look at some of the other ones that are like this, and you have to take pretty steep drawbacks, this one gives you a bonus. So I assume it's intentional. And okay, as is, how does it play? Um, so it's a one shot, which is sort of weird for a 7 cost. Um, but on the other hand, let's say you get 3 coppers with this. Well, it's gotten you 4 victory points in that case, and uh, so that's, a bit better than a duchy, plus it's giving you 4 money back, and a buy. So, I don't know, I think that's sort of interesting. Maybe a little bit weak, but on the other hand, there's probably situations you can get it into where it's quite good. You're trashing all your copper with it, and it's suddenly quite a bit better than a province. Um, Although I guess 7 cards should be sometimes. Uh, I don't know. Seems interesting. Banknote. Worth 2 and gives you a buy. If you have 4 or more differently named treasures, it's 6. I honestly think that could cost 5, because that's a pretty big hoop to jump through. Um, and 4 or more differently named treasures is a little bit funky to me. I don't know, seems fine. Reputation. This one has the really weird, confusing wording here. Um, so it's weird that the cost can go up if I like play some highways, especially. Um, and it's only worth 4. So if you have one such card in play, it costs 8 for a $4 treasure, which is not that good. Platinum's not even great, although it's pretty good. This is be significantly worse. And then once you get it down to 6, it's just better than gold. So I think it makes purely uninteresting decisions. Okay, Silk Merchant. Yeah, weird trade route thing. I'm not even going to go into all that stuff, but um, yeah, just sort of confusing, um, and actually probably reasonably balanced. Um, but I mean, you could potentially get into this situation where you have like some card that gives you buy Workers Village and this, and you always trash 2 coppers and then gain 2 coppers and start gaining like 4 or 5 VP a turn while only draining copper or curse piles. Um, but okay, you will eventually drain those piles, and overall, it's got to be okay. Indulgence. Uh, so this is everyone's favorite card, and I think it's just way too good as is. It's a treasure. If it were a terminal action, I think it'd be interesting. But as a treasure, I think it's way too good. Let's see what are the options that they can name. Silver. Well, you've just turned silver into a harem. That's really good effect. Okay, it costs 5, but that's still really good. So, okay, but they're going to have other options. Duchy. That's suddenly almost as good as province and not hard to get. You can't really name that. Gold. Gold is now better than harem by quite a bit and costs the same. Um, that's, I think, a really powerful effect. Although, maybe if they know you can't get to 6, they're safe naming that. So the knock on it is, oh, well, they'll just name terminals all the time. But I think reasonably often you either have enough villages or they're not drawing terminals. You just buy that card anyway. Like, I have a hard time thinking of cards that I wouldn't buy pretty often that cost between 3 and 6. Like Thief, no, I would probably buy if it was Thief plus 2 victory points. Um, Scout, yeah, Scout plus 2 victory points. I'm probably buying it pretty often. Um, And those are like the worst cards, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's just not very good because there's a terrible, terrible card that you can't get that many of. But I think oftentimes it's too good, and I don't think it's hardly ever in that sort of middle range. Okay, it does cost 5, but um, I would like to see it as an action and really a terminal action, and then we could talk. Or maybe if it was just 1 VP, um, we could talk then too. But as is, I think it's just quite too strong. Okay, Smelter. Um, yeah, sort of weird random trashing problem. And gaining 3 golds for all that. Like early on, this card is pretty good, and then it's terrible. I don't know, actually, it's probably a fine card because you just don't play it, right? Okay, Rosary. I don't know why this is called Rosary at all. Um, I do like the idea of a treasure attack. Um, when you play this, you may trash. Oh, they may trash a treasure in action. So it doesn't stack very well, and gaining 2 coppers, putting 1 in hand, um, it's not that powerful of an attack, like compare Mountebank. So I actually quite like this card. Um, I think it's usually weaker than Mountebank even as a treasure, and sometimes just actually because they'll often want to be trashing treasures, especially early anyway, or actions like they chapel down. This is actually could maybe cost 4. Um, the elusive is it better than silver 4 cost thing. Yeah, but I quite like the idea. Anyway, I gotta go soon, so and I'm done with the cards. So that's my thoughts. Let me know about the quality. Let me know about the Terra Broken. Let me know about your thoughts on my ideas, on the cards, everything. And thanks for watching this long, long video.